I always thought the universe had a sense of humor, but on my 10th wedding anniversary, I discovered it has a sick one. The morning started perfectly. I woke up early to make Doug's favorite breakfast: blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup, crispy bacon, and that fancy coffee he loves, the one that costs more than my first car payment. I'd been planning this day for weeks. "Something smells amazing," Doug said, wrapping his arms around my waist as I flipped the last pancake. His chin rested on my shoulder, and I leaned back into him, savoring the familiar weight of his body against mine. "Happy anniversary," I whispered, turning to kiss him. His lips tasted like toothpaste and home. "Happy anniversary, Presley." He smiled, that crooked smile that still made my stomach flutter after a decade. "I can't believe you remembered the pancakes." "I remember everything." I tapped his nose with my finger. "Including that you have that big meeting with Cooper today. I thought you might need brain food." We ate breakfast together at our little kitchen island, knees touching, planning our weekend getaway. Doug had booked a cabin in the mountains, the same one where he'd proposed. I'd already packed my bag, hiding the new lingerie beneath my hiking clothes. "I have to run," he said, glancing at his watch. "Dinner tonight? That Italian place you love?" "It's a date." I kissed him goodbye, tasting maple syrup and possibility. After he left, I cleaned up the kitchen, humming to myself. 10 years. A decade of building a life with my best friend. We'd weathered job changes, a miscarriage, his father's death. We'd bent, but never broken. I glanced at the clock. 11:30. Doug's meeting with Cooper would be wrapping up soon. On impulse, I decided to surprise him with lunch. I knew how stressed he'd been about this presentation, and I wanted to celebrate with him if it went well, or comfort him if it hadn't. I picked up sandwiches from that deli near his office, pastrami on rye with extra mustard for him, turkey and avocado for me. As I drove downtown, I called Rachel, my best friend since college. "How's the anniversary so far?" she asked. "Perfect. I'm surprising Doug with lunch. Want to meet us?" "Oh, I can't today," she said quickly. "I've got a thing." "A thing?" I laughed. Very specific. "You know how it is," she said. "Have fun with Doug. Tell him I said happy anniversary." I pulled into the parking garage of Doug's building, excitement bubbling in my chest. The security guard waved me through. I visited often enough that he knew me by name. "Hey, Mike," I called. "Is Doug in?" "Sure is, Mrs. Bryant. Been here all morning." I took the elevator to the 14th floor, balancing the bag of sandwiches and 2 iced teas. The receptionist wasn't at her desk, so I walked straight back to Doug's office. His door was closed, but I could hear voices inside. The meeting must be running long. I hesitated, not wanting to interrupt if Cooper was still there. But then I heard laughter, a woman's laughter, not the receptionist or Doug's assistant, a laugh I knew as well as my own. Rachel. My hand froze on the doorknob. Why would Rachel be in Doug's office when she'd just told me she had a thing? I stood there, heartbeat thundering in my ears, as a cold certainty washed over me. I knew before I opened the door. I knew, and still I turned the handle. The first thing I saw was Doug's bare back. The second was Rachel's manicured fingers, the ones I'd held while she cried over her divorce last year, digging into his shoulders. They didn't hear me. They didn't see me. They were too wrapped up in each other on Doug's desk, the desk I'd helped him pick out when he made partner. My body moved on autopilot. I set down the sandwiches. I pulled out my phone. I started recording. The video is 18 seconds long. 18 seconds of my husband and my best friend destroying 10 years of trust. 18 seconds that turned my life into before and after. I closed the door as quietly as I'd opened it. No dramatic confrontation. No screaming. Just the soft click of the latch and the weight of betrayal settling into my bones. In the elevator, a woman asked if I was okay. I must have looked like a ghost. "It's my anniversary," I said, and she smiled sympathetically, assuming my tears were happy ones. I drove home in a fog, muscle memory guiding me through traffic lights and stop signs. Inside our house, the house Doug and I had painted together, arguing over shades of blue for the bedroom, I sat on the edge of our bed and watched the video again, and again, and again. My hands shook as I pressed play for the fourth time. There they were, the two people I trusted most in the world, betraying me on the day that was supposed to celebrate love and commitment. I zoomed in on Rachel's face, contorted in pleasure, on Doug's hands, still wearing the wedding band I'd placed there a decade ago. Something cold and hard crystallized inside me. This wasn't just about sex, this was about lies, about making a fool of me, about breaking something precious and irreplaceable. As I stared at the frozen image on my phone screen, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. They would pay for this, both of them, and I would be the one to collect. I sat in our bedroom for hours, my phone battery draining as I watched the video on repeat. Each viewing should have numbed me. Instead, it only sharpened the pain, like a knife being honed against stone. The sun had set by the time my phone buzzed with Doug's text. Running late. Meet at the restaurant at 8? I stared at those casual words. How could he type something so normal when nothing would ever be normal again? I imagined him straightening his tie in his office bathroom, Rachel helping him smooth down his hair, both of them laughing about the wife waiting at home. Sure, I replied. See you there. See you. I showered mechanically, water scalding my skin as I scrubbed away tears. The anniversary dress I'd bought, a deep blue that Doug once said matched my eyes, hung on the closet door. I couldn't bear to touch it. Instead, I pulled on jeans and a sweater, clothes for a normal day, not the day my marriage died. My phone buzzed again. Rachel this time. How was the surprise lunch? The audacity stole my breath. She knew I'd planned to surprise Doug. She'd been there, on his desk, when I arrived. Was this some sick game to her? To see how close she could dance to the truth without getting caught? I left her message unanswered and drove to the restaurant in a fog. The maitre d' smiled when I gave Doug's name. Ah yes, the anniversary dinner. Your husband is already seated. Doug stood when he saw me, his face lighting up with that smile I used to believe was only for me. He changed into a fresh shirt. Of course he had. Couldn't smell like another woman on our anniversary. There's my beautiful wife, he said, leaning in to kiss me. I turned my face at the last second, his lips grazing my cheek. If he noticed, he didn't show it. I ordered champagne, he said, gesturing to the bottle chilling beside our table. 10 years deserves the good stuff. I sat down, studying his face across the flickering candle. Did he look different? Was there some mark of betrayal I'd never noticed before? Or had he always been this person, and I'd been too blinded by love to see it? How was your meeting with Cooper? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Good. Great, actually. Doug poured champagne into my glass. He's on board with the expansion plan. That's all you did today? The meeting with Cooper? He hesitated, just a microsecond. Yeah, why? No other meetings? No unexpected visitors? Another pause. Just the usual office stuff. Why are you asking? The waiter appeared to take our orders. Doug chose for both of us. He always did on special occasions. Usually I found it romantic. Tonight it felt like another form of control. Remember our first date? Doug asked after the waiter left. That terrible Chinese restaurant where the waiter spilled soup all over me? I remember, I said. You were wearing your blue shirt, the one Rachel helped you pick out. His smile faltered. Was it? I don't recall. Oh, I'm sure it was. Rachel remembers too. We were just talking about it the other day. Doug's fingers tightened around his champagne glass. You and Rachel talk about my shirts? We talk about everything. I met his eyes. Best friends do that. The food arrived, saving him from responding. I watched him cut into his steak, the same hands that had been all over Rachel hours earlier now wielding a knife with practiced precision. I went by your office today, I said suddenly. Doug's fork clattered against his plate. You did? Mm-hmm. Around lunchtime. I took a sip of champagne, letting the moment stretch. But you weren't there. I was probably in the conference room with Cooper. You should have texted. Should I have? I pulled out my phone, set it on the table. Is that what a wife is supposed to do? Text before visiting her husband's office? Give him time to, what, straighten his tie? Zip his pants? Doug's face drained of color. Presley, what are you talking about? I'm talking about you fucking my best friend on your desk on our anniversary. The couple at the next table glanced over. Doug leaned forward, voice low and urgent. Keep your voice down. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed, the sound brittle even to my own ears. That's what you're worried about? Let's discuss this at home, he hissed. Not here. Why? Afraid someone might hear what kind of man you really are? You're upset, I get it, but you're jumping to conclusions. Am I? I picked up my phone, turned it toward him. Should I press play, Doug? Let you see what I saw? His eyes widened as understanding dawned. You recorded us? 18 seconds of my husband and my best friend betraying me. Want to watch it? Maybe the waiter would like to see too. Doug reached for my hand. I yanked it away. Presley, please. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I stood up, legs shaking. 10 years, Doug. 10 years of my life with a man who could look me in the eyes and lie without blinking. Sit down, he pleaded. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I saw you. I saw her. I grabbed my purse. Enjoy your anniversary dinner. I'm sure Rachel's available if you need company. I walked out of the restaurant with my head high, ignoring the curious stares. In the parking lot, my composure cracked. I slumped against my car, gulping in the cold night air. My phone buzzed with a text from Doug. Come home. We need to talk. Another notification appeared. Rachel calling. I declined, then blocked her number with trembling fingers. The drive home was a blur. I didn't cry. Something had hardened inside me, like amber preserving a moment in time. The moment I decided I wouldn't just walk away. They thought they knew me. Sweet, trusting Presley who always saw the best in people. They had no idea what I was capable of. I pulled into our driveway and sat in the dark, formulating a plan. Doug would come home expecting tears, apologies, maybe even forgiveness. He would find none of those things. Thunder rolled outside our bedroom window, nature's percussion matching my stormy thoughts. I hadn't slept. How could I, knowing Doug would eventually come home to explain away his betrayal? I'd heard his key in the lock around midnight, his hesitant footsteps in the hallway, but he'd retreated to the guest room without confronting me. Coward. By morning, the rain was hammering against the roof in angry sheets. I dressed for work methodically. Black pencil skirt, white blouse, armor for the battlefield my life had become. In the kitchen, I found Doug hunched over coffee, his eyes bloodshot. Presley, he started, rising from his chair. We need to talk. I'm late for work. I poured coffee into my travel mug, my movements precise and controlled. It's Saturday. Some of us have integrity about our commitments. I screwed the lid on tight, unlike others. Doug ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. Now it just reminded me of Rachel's fingers doing the same thing. What you saw? It wasn't... If you say it wasn't what it looked like, I swear to God I will throw this scalding coffee in your face. He stepped back, eyes wide. Good. Let him be afraid. It was a mistake, he said finally. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. But it was only once, I swear. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to cut glass. Only once? Oh, well, that changes everything. Should we renew our vows now or wait until after breakfast? Presley, please. Has she called you? I asked suddenly. Rachel, have you talked to her since I left the restaurant? His hesitation told me everything. Of course you have. I moved toward the door. You two probably had a good laugh about your hysterical wife. It's not like that. Doug blocked my path. She's worried about you. We both are. Move. Not until you listen. I set down my coffee, pulled out my phone, and dialed. Hi, Mark, it's me. Can you come over? Doug won't let me leave the house. My voice broke convincingly. I'm scared. Doug's face paled. You called your brother? Jesus, Presley, I'm not keeping you prisoner. I ended the call. Then move. He stepped aside, hands raised in surrender. This isn't solving anything. I'm not interested in solving anything, I said, retrieving my coffee. I'm interested in surviving. I drove to work despite it being Saturday, needing somewhere to go that wasn't home. The office was quiet, just a few dedicated souls catching up on paperwork. I locked myself in my office and finally allowed myself to cry, quick, angry tears that I wiped away almost as soon as they fell. My phone buzzed with texts from Doug, from Mark asking if I was okay, and most infuriatingly, from Rachel. "We need to talk, please. It's not what you think." I blocked her number again, wondering how she'd gotten through after I'd blocked her yesterday. Technology, like loyalty, apparently had its limits. A knock at my door made me jump. "Presley, you okay in there?" It was Layla, my closest work friend, peering in with concern. I thought I heard someone. I quickly wiped my eyes. "Just catching up on some reports." Layla stepped in, closing the door behind her. "On a Saturday? In yesterday's makeup?" She sat down across from me. What happened? Something about her direct gaze broke my composure. The story spilled out. The anniversary, the surprise lunch, the video, the disastrous dinner. "Oh, honey." Layla reached across the desk to squeeze my hand. "I've been exactly where you are." I blinked in surprise. "You have?" 3 years ago, Tom and his dental hygienist." She smiled grimly. "Such a cliché, right?" I didn't know. "We worked through it. Counseling, lots of tears, more anger than I knew I could feel." She shrugged. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but our marriage is stronger now." I stared at her, incredulous. "You forgave him?" "Eventually. Not right away." She leaned forward. "Look, I'm not saying that's your path, but don't make any decisions while you're still in shock." "I'm not in shock," I said. "I'm in hell." "That too." She squeezed my hand again. "Whatever you need, I'm here." After Layla left, I sat at my desk, turning her words over in my mind. Forgiveness? The very idea made my stomach turn, and yet, seeing her, strong, confident Layla, talk about working through betrayal made me wonder if I was overreacting. No. The image of Doug and Rachel flashed in my mind. This wasn't about sex. It was about trust, about respect, about 10 years of my life built on quicksand. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "It's Mia. Rachel's a mess. She says there's more to the story. Can we meet?" Mia, our mutual friend, always caught in the middle. I hesitated, then replied, "Starbucks on 4th, 1 hour." I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner where I could watch the door. Mia rushed in 15 minutes late, her curly hair damp from the rain. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "I wasn't sure you would." I almost didn't. I stirred my untouched latte. "What's this more to the story bullshit Rachel's feeding you?" Mia fidgeted with her coffee sleeve. "She says it was a one-time thing, that she was helping Doug plan your anniversary surprise and things. Escalated." My anniversary surprise was sex on his desk? I laughed bitterly. "How thoughtful." "She's devastated, Presley. She knows she betrayed you." "Good. The thing is," Mia hesitated, "I think there's something else going on, something neither of them is saying." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Rachel mentioned financial problems, something about Doug being in trouble. She shook her head. "I don't know details, but she was crying about how she'd made everything worse." I sat back, processing this new information. Doug, in financial trouble. He handled our money, our investments, our future. "Why would sleeping with my husband solve financial problems?" I asked. "I don't know." Mia looked miserable. "I just thought you should know there might be more going on." As I drove home, rain lashing against my windshield, a new plan began forming in my mind. If Doug was hiding financial secrets alongside his infidelity, I needed to know. Before confronting him, before deciding anything, I needed the full picture. The betrayal had just become a puzzle, and I was very, very good at solving puzzles. The woman in the mirror wasn't me. She had my features, the same dark hair, the same blue eyes, but something fundamental had changed. 3 days of sleepless nights had hollowed her cheeks and darkened the skin beneath her eyes. But it was more than physical exhaustion. There was a hardness there, a calculation that hadn't existed before. I leaned closer, studying this new version of myself. Who are you becoming? I whispered. No answer came, just the distant sound of Doug moving around downstairs. We'd been circling each other like wary animals since Saturday, sleeping in separate rooms, communicating in terse texts about practical matters. I'll be late tonight, leftovers in the fridge, bill payment due tomorrow. The charade of normalcy was almost more painful than the betrayal itself. I finished applying my makeup, armor for another day of pretending I wasn't falling apart, and headed downstairs. Doug was at the kitchen table, laptop open, brow furrowed. Morning, I said, my voice carefully neutral as I reached for the coffee pot. He startled, quickly closing his laptop. Hey, I didn't hear you come down. That small gesture, the guilty closing of his computer, confirmed what I'd begun to suspect after talking with Mia. Whatever was happening went beyond the affair. Plans today? I asked casually, stirring cream into my coffee. Just work, meetings. He rubbed his temple. You? The usual. I leaned against the counter, studying him. The confident man I'd married looked diminished somehow, shoulders hunched under an invisible weight. Everything okay with the Anderson account? His eyes flickered to mine, surprise evident. Why do you ask? Just curious. You've been stressed about it. It's fine. Too quick, too dismissive. Everything's fine. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Good to hear. At the office, I closed my door and pulled out the notebook where I'd been documenting everything I could remember about our finances. Joint checking account at First National, investment portfolio managed by Westlake Partners, retirement accounts, the mortgage, all things Doug handled. I'd always trusted him with money matters. He was the financial whiz after all. Now that trust felt like another weapon he'd used against me. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Got a minute? It was Guillermo, one of our senior analysts. I need your signature on these reports. Sure, I gestured to the chair across from me. How's everything going with the Miller project? On track. He set the reports down, then hesitated. Are you okay, Presley? You seem different lately. I forced a smile. Just tired. Busy time of year. Guillermo studied me, his dark eyes kind, but penetrating. If you need anything, work-related or otherwise, I'm here. I appreciate that. After he left, I stared at the closed door, thinking about his offer. Guillermo had gone through a messy divorce last year. Maybe he could help navigate the financial labyrinth I was facing, but that would mean admitting my marriage was over. I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Lunch today? Need to talk to you. I met my brother at a deli near his office. Mark was already there, his expression grim as I slid into the booth across from him. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting. Thanks. You always know just what to say. He pushed a sandwich toward me. Turkey on rye, extra pickles. Eat. I took a bite to appease him, though food had lost its appeal days ago. What's so urgent? Mark leaned forward, lowering his voice. I ran into Rachel yesterday. My stomach clenched. And? She was a mess, Press. Crying, begging me to convince you to talk to her. Did she happen to explain why she was screwing my husband? Mark winced. She tried. Something about helping Doug with financial problems and things getting complicated. That's the story she's going with? I set down my sandwich. That she slept with my husband as some kind of... What? Financial aid? I'm just telling you what she said. Mark's eyes softened. Look, what they did is inexcusable. But you need to talk to Doug. Really talk, not just exchange cold shoulders and colder texts. Why? So he can lie to me again? So you can figure out what you want to do. Mark reached across the table, covering my hand with his. Are you filing for divorce? Trying to work it out? You need information to make those decisions. I pulled my hand away. I'm getting information, just not from them. Mark's eyebrows rose. What does that mean? It means I'm not as naive as everyone thinks. I stood up, suddenly needing to escape his concerned gaze. Thanks for lunch. Presley, wait. I have to get back to work. I spent the afternoon making calls to our bank, our investment firm, our accountant. Each conversation revealed another layer of deception. Accounts I didn't know about, withdrawals I couldn't explain, a second mortgage taken out 6 months ago. By 5 o'clock, I had a clearer picture, and it was uglier than I'd imagined. Doug hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, he'd put our financial future at risk. I was still processing this when my phone rang. Cooper James, Doug's business partner. Presley? Sorry to bother you, but is Doug with you? No, why? He missed our investor meeting, not answering his phone. It's not like him. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. When did you last hear from him? This morning. We were supposed to discuss. Cooper paused. Well, some discrepancies in the accounts. What kind of discrepancies? Another pause. I think that's something you should discuss with Doug. Cooper, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. If my husband is in trouble, I need to know. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. There's money missing, he finally said. A lot of money, and the trail leads to Doug. After we hung up, I sat motionless, staring at the wall. The betrayal had just expanded exponentially. Not just an affair, but theft, embezzlement. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It's Rachel. Please don't block this number. There's something you need to know about Doug. He's not who you think he is. None of this is what you think. I stared at her message, anger and curiosity warring within me. Then I made a decision. Meet me at Lakeside Park, 7 p.m. Come alone. It was time to hear what my former best friend had to say. Not because I was ready to forgive, but because I needed every weapon I could get for the war ahead. Lakeside Park was nearly empty as dusk settled over the water. A few joggers circled the path, and an elderly couple fed ducks near the shore. I sat on a bench facing the lake, watching ripples distort my reflection into something unrecognizable, fitting since I barely knew myself anymore. The sound of hesitant footsteps made me look up. Rachel stood a few feet away, her usual confident posture replaced by something smaller, more uncertain. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her normally perfect makeup absent. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice barely audible above the evening breeze. I didn't invite her to sit. Talk. She wrapped her arms around herself as if cold, despite the mild evening. I don't know where to start. How about with why you were fucking my husband on our anniversary? Rachel flinched. I deserve that. I deserve worse. She took a shaky breath. What happened between Doug and me? It wasn't planned. It wasn't an affair. I have video evidence that says otherwise. That was the first time. Her eyes met mine, pleading. The only time. And it happened because I was trying to help him fix the mess he'd created before you found out. I laughed bitterly. So sleeping with him was what? A bonus service? It was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. She moved closer, though still keeping a safe distance. But you need to know what Doug's involved in. It's bad, Presley. Really bad. Cooper already told me about the missing money. Rachel shook her head. It's more than that. Doug's been laundering money for some very dangerous people, the kind who don't forgive mistakes. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. What are you talking about? He approached me 6 months ago, asking for legal advice. Rachel's voice dropped lower. He was already in deep, gambling debts, bad investments. He borrowed money from the wrong people. And you, being such a good friend, decided to help him hide it from me? My voice rose despite my effort to stay calm. For 6 months? I thought I could fix it. Her composure cracked. I thought if I helped him repay the money, you'd never have to know how close he came to losing everything. So you just lied to my face, day after day. To protect you. To protect him, I corrected. And yourself. Rachel's shoulders slumped. Maybe you're right. Maybe I was protecting all of us from the truth, that Doug isn't who we thought he was. A jogger passed, glancing curiously at our tense standoff. I waited until he was out of earshot before continuing. Why should I believe anything you're saying? Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a thumb drive. Because I brought proof, financial records, emails, everything I've gathered over the past 6 months. It's all here. I stared at the small device she held out. And the sex? Was that part of your protection plan too? Her hand trembled. That day in his office, he told me he couldn't pay the money back, that these people were threatening him, threatening you. I was trying to calm him down, figure out what to do next, and then she shook her head. It just happened. One terrible, stupid moment of weakness. On our anniversary. The date still stung like salt in an open wound. I didn't know it was your anniversary until after when you called. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I hate myself for what I did to you. But right now, there's something more important than my guilt or your anger. What could possibly be more important? Doug's missing. The words hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean missing? He's not answering calls or texts. Hasn't been to the office. His car is gone from the parking garage. Rachel held out the thumb drive again. These people he owes money to, they don't send collection notices, Presley. They send messages, painful ones. I took the drive, my fingers numb. You think they have him? I think he's running, and if he is, you might be in danger too. The drive home was a blur, Rachel's warnings echoing in my head. I kept checking my rearview mirror, suddenly paranoid about every car that stayed behind me for more than a few blocks. Our house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the car, staring at the home Doug and I had built together, now just a shell containing broken promises and lies. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Just checking in. You okay? I started to type, I'm fine, but stopped. The lie stuck in my throat. Nothing was fine. Nothing would ever be fine again. Instead, I called him. Can you come over? I need help. 20 minutes later, Mark arrived with a bottle of whiskey and a determined expression. I led him to the kitchen table where I'd set up my laptop. What's going on, Press? He asked, pouring us each a generous drink. I inserted Rachel's thumb drive. I'm about to find out how much trouble Doug is really in. The files opened like Pandora's box, spilling secrets across my screen. Bank transfers, emails with veiled threats, photos of Doug meeting with men I didn't recognize in parking garages and empty restaurants. Jesus, Mark whispered, scrolling through the evidence. This is serious, Presley. These aren't the kind of people you mess with. Apparently, they're exactly the kind of people Doug messes with. I took a long swallow of whiskey, welcoming the burn. And now he's disappeared. Mark's face hardened. You need to go to the police. With what? Evidence my husband's a criminal? That my best friend helped him hide it? That makes me look complicit. It makes you look like a victim. I slammed my glass down. I'm done being a victim. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Mark motioned for me to stay seated while he checked the peephole. It's Layla, he called. I opened the door to find my colleague standing on my porch, her expression grave. Sorry to show up unannounced, she said, but I found something you need to see. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside was a photograph. Doug and another man in what looked like an intense conversation. That was taken yesterday, Layla said. At the airport. I stared at the image, my heart pounding. How did you get this? My brother works security there. She hesitated. Presley, the man with Doug. He's connected to some very dangerous people. The photograph trembled in my hand. He's running. Yes, Layla confirmed. And based on what my brother overheard, he's not planning to come back. I looked from the photo to the computer screen still displaying evidence of Doug's crimes, and something inside me hardened into resolve. Let him run, I said, my voice steady. But he's not taking my life with him. The flames in my fireplace danced hypnotically, consuming old photographs. Doug and me on our honeymoon, at Christmas parties, on hiking trips. With each picture that blackened and curled, I felt a strange mixture of grief and liberation. Are you sure about this? Mark asked, watching from the doorway. Some of those can't be replaced. That's the point. I fed another memory to the fire, our wedding portrait. I don't want reminders of a life that was built on lies. It had been 3 days since Doug disappeared. 3 days of discovering just how thoroughly he'd betrayed me. Not just with Rachel, but with every decision he'd made over the past year. our savings drained, our home equity leveraged, our future gambled away. Mark sat beside me, taking the stack of remaining photos. "Keep these," he said gently. "Not for Doug, for you, for the person you were, who loved honestly." I let him set them aside, too exhausted to argue. I hadn't slept more than a few hours since discovering the affair, and the weight of each new revelation pressed down on me like stones. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" Mark asked. "About Doug? Or the fact that he's left me holding the bag for his crimes?" "Both, I guess." I stared into the flames. "I filed a police report this morning. Reported him missing." I laughed bitterly. "Officer asked if he had any reason to leave. Where would I even start?" "Did you tell them about the money laundering?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with first." The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Mark went to answer it while I continued my ritual of destruction, feeding credit card statements and bank notices to the fire. "It's Guillermo," Mark called from the hallway. I quickly wiped my eyes, not wanting my colleague to see me falling apart. In the living room, Guillermo entered cautiously as if stepping into a minefield. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said, his accent more pronounced than usual. "I was worried when you didn't come to work today." "Just taking some personal time." I gestured to the chair across from me. "How did you know where I live?" "Company directory." He sat down, his dark eyes taking in the scene, the fire, the photos, my obvious distress. "Presley, what's happening? Is there anything I can do?" Something about his genuine concern cracked my carefully constructed facade. The story spilled out. Doug's betrayal, his criminal activities, his disappearance. "So now I'm left with nothing but debt and potential criminal charges," I finished, my voice hollow. Guillermo leaned forward. "You need a lawyer, a good one." "I can't afford one. Doug made sure of that." "I know someone." He pulled out his phone. "My ex-wife tried to frame me for tax fraud during our divorce. This attorney saved me." As he made the call, arranging a meeting for the following morning, I studied him with new eyes. Guillermo had always been kind, professional, but this level of personal involvement surprised me. "Why are you helping me?" I asked after he hung up. His expression softened. "Because I know what it's like to have your life destroyed by someone you trusted, and because—" He hesitated. "Because you deserve better than this." The simple kindness of his words hit me harder than any of the betrayals had. I turned away, not wanting him to see the tears threatening to fall. "Thank you," I managed. After Guillermo left, promising to pick me up for the lawyer meeting, Mark gave me a knowing look. "What?" I demanded. "Nothing," he smiled slightly. "Just nice to see you have people in your corner. He's a colleague, that's all. If you say so." Mark checked his watch. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." "You don't have to babysit me. I'm not going to do anything stupid." "Aren't you?" He gestured to the fire. "This revenge plan you're cooking up. Where does it end, Press?" "It ends with Doug facing consequences for once in his life." Mark sighed. "Just be careful. Revenge has a way of burning the person who seeks it." After he left, I sat alone by the dying fire, turning his words over in my mind. Was this about justice, or was I just lashing out in pain? The line between the two had blurred beyond recognition. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Need to talk. Cooper found something. It's urgent." I hesitated, then replied, "I'm done talking." Her response came immediately. "This isn't about me or Doug, it's about you. These people think you have their money." A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the cooling embers. "What people?" "The ones Doug owes. They came to the office looking for him, asked about you." I stared at her message, fear crystallizing into something harder, colder. "What did you tell them?" "That I didn't know where either of you were. Presley, they weren't asking nicely." I set the phone down, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about exposing Doug anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about survival. The doorbell rang again, startling me. It was nearly midnight. too late for casual visitors. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Layla stood on my porch, her expression urgent. "Sorry for the late hour," she said when I opened the door, "but you need to see this now." She thrust her phone at me. On the screen was a news article. Local businessman found unconscious after apparent assault. The businessman was Cooper. "He's in the ICU," Layla said. "Police are saying it was a robbery, but my brother's friend works hospital security. Cooper was beaten methodically, professionally. This wasn't random." I pulled her inside, locking the door behind her. "Did he say anything? Before they hurt him?" "That's why I'm here." Layla's voice dropped. "He regained consciousness briefly, asked for you, said something about a safe deposit box." "What safe deposit box?" "I don't know. But whatever Doug was involved in, it's escalating." She gripped my arm. "These people aren't playing games, Presley, and they think you know something." I sank onto the stairs, the reality of my situation crashing down on me. Doug hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, he'd left me in physical danger. "I need to find that safe deposit box," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Before they do." Layla nodded. "I'll help you, but we need to move fast." As I gathered my purse and keys, a new message appeared on my phone, from an unknown number. "We know Doug ran. We know you have access to what's ours. You have 24 hours. No signature, no explanation needed." The clock was ticking. Morning light streamed through the bank's windows, catching dust motes in golden beams that seemed mockingly cheerful. I gripped the counter, forcing my voice to remain steady. "I need to access my husband's safe deposit box." The bank manager, his nameplate read Timothy, smiled apologetically. "I understand, Mrs. Bryant, but without your name on the account or your husband present, my husband is missing." I slid the police report across the counter. "And I have reason to believe this box contains evidence relevant to his disappearance." Timothy examined the report, his smile fading. "This is highly irregular. So is having dangerous criminals threaten you because your husband stole their money." I leaned closer. "Please, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." He hesitated, then nodded. "Wait here." While he disappeared into a back office, I glanced at Layla, who stood by the door keeping watch. She gave me a subtle thumbs up. 20 minutes and several phone calls later, I followed Timothy into the vault. Rows of metal boxes lined the walls, each containing someone's secrets. He stopped at box 1742. "I'll need to witness you opening it," he said, inserting his key. "Bank policy." I nodded, turning my own key, found in Doug's desk drawer after hours of searching. The lock clicked, and Timothy pulled out a long metal container. "I'll give you privacy to examine the contents," he said, setting it on a small table. "But I'll be right outside." Once alone, I took a deep breath and lifted the lid. Inside lay a USB drive, a small notebook, and a manila envelope. I opened the envelope first, finding a stack of photographs, Doug with various men in suits, exchanging envelopes, shaking hands. Evidence of his criminal activities or insurance against his partners? The notebook contained dates, amounts, and initials, a record of transactions, perhaps. I pocketed everything, my heart racing. Whatever Doug had been involved in, he'd been careful to document it. Outside, Layla waited anxiously. "Did you find anything?" "Maybe everything," I whispered, patting my purse. "Let's go." We were halfway to the car when my phone rang. Rachel. "Not now," I muttered, declining the call. It immediately rang again. This time I answered. "What?" "They know you're at the bank." Rachel's voice was tight with fear. "They're watching you." My steps faltered. "How do you know that?" "Because they came to my office again. Said if you don't bring them what's in that box, they'll—" Her voice broke. "Presley, these aren't idle threats." I scanned the parking lot, suddenly aware of how exposed we were. "Where are you now?" "Home. They said to tell you to bring everything to my place by noon." I checked my watch. 10:47. "Who exactly is they?" "I don't know their names, but the one in charge, he has a scar across his left cheek. Doug called him Marcus. And you trust these people to just let us walk away once I hand everything over? Rachel's laugh was hollow. I don't trust anyone anymore, but I don't see another option. After hanging up, I turned to Layla. Change of plans. We need to go to my office first. Your office? Why? Because if I'm walking into a trap, I'm making copies of everything first. 30 minutes later, I stood in the empty copy room, duplicating every page of Doug's notebook while Layla kept watch. Guillermo appeared in the doorway, his expression concerned. Presley, I thought you were taking time off. I hesitated, then made a split-second decision. I need your help. Quickly, I explained the situation, the safe deposit box, Rachel's call, the noon deadline. This is insane, Guillermo said when I finished. You need to go to the police. With what? Evidence my husband is a criminal? That makes me look complicit. I shook my head. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with first. Then I'm coming with you to Rachel's. Absolutely not. These people are dangerous. Exactly why you shouldn't go alone. His jaw set stubbornly. I'm not asking permission. I wanted to argue but didn't have time. Fine, but you stay in the car 2 blocks away. If I'm not out in 20 minutes, call this number. I scribbled Mark's number on a post-it. Tell him everything. At 11:55, I parked outside Rachel's townhouse. The street was quiet, too quiet for a weekday. No dog walkers, no delivery trucks, no signs of the normal suburban bustle. I don't like this, Guillermo said from the passenger seat. It feels wrong. None of this has felt right since I found my husband with my best friend. I checked my watch. 20 minutes, not a second longer. Be careful, he said as I got out. Whatever's in that box isn't worth your life. I nodded, unable to speak past the knot of fear in my throat. Rachel opened her door before I could knock, her face pale and drawn. You came? Not like I had a choice. I stepped inside, clutching my purse with its precious cargo. Where are they? Living room. I followed her through the familiar hallway. How many times had I walked this path as a friend, never imagining I'd return as a pawn in some criminal game. 2 men sat on Rachel's cream-colored sofa. One was tall and thin, with nervous hands that couldn't seem to stay still. The other was older, heavier, with a jagged scar cutting through his left eyebrow and down his cheek. Marcus. Mrs. Bryant, he said, rising. Thank you for joining us. Let's skip the pleasantries. I remained standing, keeping distance between us. I have what Doug took. I want guarantees that my friends and I will be left alone. Marcus smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. Of course, we're businessmen, not monsters. Businessmen don't put people in the ICU. Unfortunate what happened to Cooper. He shrugged. But necessary. He was uncooperative. My skin crawled at his casual dismissal of violence. I have everything from the safe deposit box. Once I confirm you'll leave us alone, it's yours. Show me. Slowly, I removed the USB drive and notebook from my purse. This is what you're looking for, right? Doug's insurance policy? Marcus's eyes narrowed. Insurance policy? The evidence he collected, names, dates, transactions. I held up the notebook. Everything he needed to bring you down if you ever turned on him. A flash of uncertainty crossed his face, the first genuine emotion I'd seen. Give me that. Not until I have your word, written and signed. The thin man laughed. You're in no position to make demands. Actually, I am. I pulled out my phone, showing them the screen. Because I'm recording this entire conversation, and if anything happens to me or anyone I care about, copies of everything go to the FBI. Marcus's face hardened. You're bluffing. Try me. I met his gaze steadily, though my heart hammered against my ribs. I have nothing left to lose. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then Marcus nodded to his companion, who produced a pen and paper. Write it, Marcus ordered. We agree to cease all contact with Presley Bryant and Associates in exchange for all materials related to Douglas Bryant's activities. As the thin man wrote, Rachel moved to stand beside me. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. I didn't look at her. Couldn't. This doesn't make us even. I know. The thin man slid the paper across the coffee table. I read it carefully, then nodded. The envelope, too, Marcus said, with the photos. I hesitated, then removed it from my purse. Everything's here. Our business is concluded. Marcus took the items, examining them briefly, before nodding to his companion. We're done here. As they moved toward the door, relief washed over me. We'd made it through. We were safe. Then Marcus paused, turning back with a cold smile. One more thing, Mrs. Bryant. Your husband, ex-husband, I corrected. Ex-husband, he amended. When you find him, and you will, tell him Marcus says hello. The door closed behind them, leaving Rachel and me in a silence heavy with unspoken words. It's over, she said finally. I shook my head, a strange calm settling over me. No, now it's time for the real reckoning. The conference room hummed with tension as I arranged 8 chairs around the long table. Each place setting had a manila folder, a glass of water, and a name card, all identical except for what was written inside the folders. Are you sure about this? Guillermo asked, adjusting the projector screen at the front of the room. I've never been more sure of anything. I smoothed my black dress, not mourning attire, but armor for battle. They might not all come. They'll come. I checked my watch. Curiosity, if nothing else. The first to arrive was Mark, 15 minutes early as always. He hugged me tightly. You don't have to do this, you know. I do, actually. I gestured to his seat. For me. Layla arrived next, then Mia, both offering tentative smiles. Cooper came limping in, still bruised from his hospital stay, but determined to be present. Rachel slipped in quietly, taking the seat farthest from mine, her eyes downcast. At exactly 7 hours, the door opened one final time. Doug stood in the doorway, thinner than when I'd last seen him, dark circles under his eyes. He scanned the room, his gaze finally settling on me. You found me, he said simply. Wasn't hard. You're predictable. I gestured to the empty chair. Your mother's cabin in Vermont? Really? He sat down cautiously. How did you know about Marcus? I know everything now. I moved to the front of the room. That's why we're here. Once everyone was seated, I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what came next. Thank you all for coming. Some of you know parts of what I'm about to share. None of you know all of it. I clicked the remote, and an image appeared on the screen, Doug and Rachel in his office. This is where it started for me, 10 days ago, my anniversary. Doug flinched. Rachel stared at her hands. But it actually started much earlier. I clicked to the next slide, bank statements, transaction records. About a year ago, when Doug began embezzling from his own company to cover gambling debts. Cooper sat up straighter, his bruised face hardening. When that wasn't enough, he borrowed from people who don't offer payment plans. Another click, the photos of Doug with Marcus. And when that went south, he started laundering money through client accounts. I moved through the evidence methodically, laying bare every deception, every betrayal. Doug's financial crimes, Rachel's complicity, the danger they'd put all of us in. Inside your folders, I continued, you'll find information specific to how these actions affected each of you. Cooper, the evidence clearing you of any involvement. Mark, documentation of the loan Doug took out in your name. One by one, they opened their folders. Expressions of shock, anger, and betrayal rippled around the table. Why are you doing this? Doug asked, his voice hollow. Because secrets have power only in the dark. I met his gaze steadily, and I'm done living in the shadow of yours. So this is revenge, Rachel said quietly. Public humiliation. No, this is truth. What you do with it is up to you. I turned to the group. Cooper has already agreed not to press charges if full restitution is made. I've liquidated our assets to cover what I can. And Marcus? Doug asked. Did you give him the evidence? Copies. Just like I gave copies to the FBI. I smiled thinly. Insurance works both ways. A heavy silence fell over the room. Then Mia spoke up. What do you want from us, Presley? Nothing. This isn't about what I want from you. It's about what I'm giving you. The truth. and the freedom to choose what to do with it. I clicked to the final slide, a blank screen. My part in this story is over. I've filed for divorce. I've given statements to the authorities. I've made what amends I can for the damage Doug's actions caused. And us? Rachel asked, her voice barely audible. Is there any way back from this? I considered her question, feeling the weight of our history. College roommates, bridesmaids at each other's weddings, countless secrets shared over wine and tears. I don't know, I answered honestly. Trust isn't just broken or fixed. Sometimes it's transformed into something else entirely. As the meeting disbanded, people moved in small groups, talking quietly, processing. Doug approached me last, his expression unreadable. You could have just turned me in, he said. Why go through all this? Because it wasn't just about you, it was about me, who I became when everything fell apart. I gathered my notes, not meeting his eyes, and who I chose to be after. And who is that? I looked up then, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. Not the man I'd loved, nor the villain who'd betrayed me, but simply a flawed human who'd made terrible choices. Someone who doesn't need revenge to heal. I closed my laptop. Someone who understands that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. He nodded slowly, accepting the finality in my voice. For what it's worth, I am sorry. I know, but sorry doesn't change what happened. It just acknowledges it. After everyone left, Guillermo helped me clear the room. We worked in comfortable silence until he spoke. Are you really okay? I paused, considering the question. Not yet, but I will be. Outside, the evening air was cool against my skin. Guillermo walked me to my car, his presence steady and undemanding. What now? He asked. I looked up at the emerging stars, bright points of light in the gathering darkness. Now I stop defining myself by what was done to me and start defining myself by what I choose to do next. And what's that? I smiled. A real smile, the first in what felt like forever. I don't know yet, but for the first time in 10 days, in 10 years maybe, that uncertainty feels like freedom. As we stood there in the quiet parking lot, I realized something profound. The story I'd been living wasn't about betrayal after all. It was about reclamation, not of what I'd lost, but of who I'd always been beneath the roles of wife, friend, victim. Just Presley, broken, healing, and finally, irrevocably, my own.